It's been about 8 minutes since we got stuck on Batwing. All the blood has rushed to the front of my head.
There you go.
Yeah, look up.
And now I'll just okay.
Six Flags America just beat the hell out of me yesterday, guys. I don't know what to say. In fact, Six Flags America beat me down so badly that I couldn't finish the vlog that day and had to come back and finish it today. But here we are. On April 13th, 2024, Six Flags America threw all it had at me. But it could not keep us down. Despite the struggles, despite everything that happened to us, we triumphed. And we had what is perhaps the ultimate Six Flags day. What am I talking about? Well, it involves ride breakdowns, being stranded for 25 minutes on multiple different roller coasters, high winds, the bar hurricanes, and plenty more ridiculous stories. So hop in and enjoy my recap of my most recent trip to Six Flags America.
Welcome to Hell First.
Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Six Flags America has a bit of a reputation in the enthusiast community, and people argue whether or not it is deserved. It is considered to be one of the bottom-tier Six Flags parks with a very old-school selection of rides, let's just say, and rather poor maintenance and upkeep. That said, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this park. It was the location where I scored my 100th credit, the Mind Eraser, and I think that they do have two legitimately great rides in Superman Ride of Steel and Batwing, all the way in the back of the park. That said, last Saturday, I understand now, it was crazy. Now, I wasn't actually planning on doing a vlog for this trip, as I've already done multiple Six Flags America vlogs, and I feel like I've done enough Six Flags America content, so that's why this is kind of all being recorded in post at my house. But there was just so much ridiculous stuff going on that I can't not share the stories, and you may have already seen the short I've put out, or the post that I made about my 25 minutes stuck in the station of Batwing in a laydown position. Let's just get into it, huh? So that Saturday morning, I woke up, got in my car, and did the relatively easy 2-ish hour drive from Philadelphia to Bowie, Maryland, where Six Flags America is located. With me is my friend and former roommate James, and meeting us at the park would be my other friend Molly. As soon as we got to the park, things weren't looking good. Now, James had not been to a Six Flags park yet this year, and he just bought the Six Flags Diamond Pass, which gives you access to every park in the Six Flags chain. But it was technically a Platinum Pass with a Diamond Pass upgrade for free. We didn't think it would matter. We got to the entrance and tried to scan his ticket, and no good. It kept saying, wrong park, wrong park, wrong park on the scanner. The operators were really confused, so eventually they kicked us back, so we walked back to customer service and tried to deal with it there. At that point, they said that the pass had not been activated yet, and the only place we could activate the pass was at Six Flags Great Adventure, 200 miles away. James was understandably very angry, as he had bought the all-park pass with the assumption that he was going to be able to use it at all parks, but they were obstinate, even though it said on the ticket, Platinum Pass plus Diamond Pass upgrade. On the ticket, you were either going to have to buy a day pass separately, which is ridiculous given that we just bought a season pass, or try to call Six Flags Great Adventure customer service and hope that they can activate it over the phone for us, which I'm sure that's gonna be fine, right? That's super easy. Rest assured, we eventually figured it out. So don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Once we got in the park, though, things were looking a little bit better. Most of the roller coasters were open, as well as the flat rides. There are only 3 major exceptions, the first being the Mind Eraser, which is currently under refurbishment, so we already knew that. Duh, wasn't going to open.
Oh, the Mind Eraser's still closed. I'm heartbroken.
Batwing, which also makes sense, because it never opens with the park, it always opens an hour late. And unfortunately, Superman the Ride, which was likely due to the relatively strong winds that we were feeling that day. Superman was a bit of a priority. This was James's first time at Six Flags America, so he needed to get the credit, and we wanted to get him on one of the best rides of the park. And Molly has had some bad luck in the past with riding Superman, let's just say. But we are confident enough it would open up later in the day. Things were looking promising. The day continued to start off strong with an actually decent middle row ride on Roar, which I guess that's the secret, just ride Roar in the middle, a solid ride on Joker's Jinx, and the welcome sight of Batwing actually cycling as we approached the back of the park towards its 12 o'clock opening time. And this allowed us to score a sweet near walk-on back row ride on the Vekoma Flying Dutchman, which is still a spectacular ride all these years later, easily the best ride in the park in my opinion. By the time we got off Batwing, Superman was already testing, so we hauled ass to get over there and ran into the station. There was a decent amount of people there, but it was pretty much a station wait. They started cycling the ride a few times and seeing it run around the course, but the wind was starting to pick up, which was starting to concern me. I kind of looked out the back out of the station to kind of see Superman go over the lift hill and crest over that first airtime hill, and I could have sworn the ride was about to valley. It crawled over that first airtime hill. I thought the wind was going to blow it back. It maybe covered the crest at like 3 miles an hour. As you can probably imagine, we immediately after heard a familiar spiel from the ride operator.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize, but Superman Ride of Steel is currently experiencing a temporary delay in operation. You're welcome to wait in the station or check out some of our other open attractions such as Batwing. Wait, Batwing's really open right now?
The station pretty much immediately emptied, which left maybe 4 of us there. We waited out for a few minutes, and then it became quite clear that the ride wasn't going to cycle anytime soon. So I snapped a selfie with my problematic fave, and we left the station to head towards different rides. Unfortunately, as we headed back to the front of the park, the wind continued to pick up with some absolutely brutal gusts, and everything was closing down. We were lucky enough to grab a good back-ish row ride on Wild One, which allowed us to get on the line for the puny drop tower, which closed right as we were about to board.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to report, even though our puny drop tower is maybe about 100 feet tall, the winds are still too high for us to run it, so you are going to have to leave.
Most inexplicably, Ragin' Cajun, the cloned Reverchon spinner, also went down for winds, which is insane because the ride is like 40 feet tall. Rather defeated, we sat down and bought overpriced drinks at Hurricanes while waiting for the wind gusts to die down. And thankfully it eventually did. Our patience and alcoholic tolerance was rewarded as Cajun time finally began and Ragin' Cajun opened up, which is great. We got a ride. It was good. It's always good. It spins really fast. Yeah. Then we made our way over to Firebird, because, I mean, come on, you gotta get the credit, and it ruined our days. Besides being an extremely bland and mostly forceless ride, all of us got absolutely nailed in the head by a pretty bad transition against the over-the-shoulder restraint, but hey, James had to get the credit, so we're all willing to suffer for it. This is all just window dressing, though. The real shit started to hit the fan when we decided to head back to the back of the park and try and get Superman again. Now, it was stuck on the lift hill before during the really strong winds, but luck seemed to be on our side. As we headed over to it, we noticed that it was beginning testing again. So we sat down on the benches in front of the ride next to the closed bathroom and watched the hyper cycle through. 1 time, then 2 times, then 3 times, then 4 times. And there was no sign of the ride op standing in front of the closed sign moving anytime soon. He looked back towards the station, kind of waiting to see to get the go-ahead, but he was getting none such go-ahead, and we were just still waiting there. A bit of a crowd was starting to form, and they sent Superman around for a 5th cycle before they finally gave the thumbs up to the ride op and they let us in. We were the first people into the station, and the energy was crazy. Everyone, the ride ops were excited, the passengers were excited, all the ops were like, oh, finally. After 4 hours of doing nothing, we can actually do something, and everyone was just as eager to finally hop on the ride. We got a nice full train for the first ride as we beelined our way to the back 2 rows and prepared for a solid ride on this bizarre yet quality hyper. And then we got stuck. Leaving the station, the front of the train hit the lift hill and we jerked a bit back and forth. There was this on, off, on, off, on, off feeling as the train kind of struggled to catch the chain lift. Initially, I thought like the ride op was fucking with us given the length of the delay. I thought he was just like pressing the lifts on and off again, like on, off, on, off, on, off. But the train just wasn't catching the chain, and eventually we slammed into a stop on the anti-rollbacks, with only the first 3-ish cars up on the lift. At this point, everyone immediately lets out a groan of discontent, as we all realize that this is very much not a joke. This was a legitimate breakdown.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're sorry to report again, but Superman is experiencing a temporary delay in operations. You are welcome to sit on the chain lift for 20 minutes while you wait for help, or go check out other open rides such as... Are you serious? Batwing is still running? What the hell's going on?
One of the rideouts poked his head out the window, staring towards us stuck on the bottom of the lift hill, and asked all of us if we were okay. I found the situation rather humorous, as did my friends, but apparently the people in the front of the train were a little bit more concerned. so the ride-op began talking to them to try to assuage their panic. James whipped out his phone and we grabbed a nice little family photo in the back of the train, waiting for something to happen. The main problem was this: we weren't up on the lift, so we weren't next to the catwalk, so even if we were to get evacuated, there was about a 10-foot drop between where we were to the ground. So an evac here wouldn't really be feasible, which was kinda good for us because that meant that they'd be more likely they would just cycle the ride. After about 10 minutes of just waiting and nothing really happening, I heard the sound of the tire drives kicking in and they kind of grinded against the car, but nothing moved. Immediately after, I smelled the distinct smell of burning rubber mixed with the groans of the rest of the train as the front of the train began to mount in their panic. Maintenance workers in orange high-vis began to swarm the ride, inspecting the lip, and the ride-op returned again to ask us once again if we were okay. Hearing the panic from the riders up front, he yelled at them all very gently to relax, calm down, it's all going to be okay, do not worry. Which, you know, is a brilliant strategy if you're trying to calm down someone who's like really panicking. But I did see the faces of people working under the chain lift, so things did seem a little bit promising at least. At about the 15-minute mark, the chain began again, very slowly. For a few brief moments, we think that we're in the clear, and we reach the bottom of the lift in the back car until the chain disengages again and we slam back into the anti-rollbacks. It was kind of painful, honestly. There was another groan of audible disappointment from the entire train, myself included, because now we were on the catwalk, so if they needed to evac us, we would be totally fine. I didn't want an evac. I mean, I've always wanted an evac credit, but like, come on, you gotta get the credit. And sitting at the bottom of the lift hill for 15 minutes does not count as a credit. Thankfully though, about 30 seconds later, the chain starts one more time and it finally catches the train. We start slowly, and then the speed eventually ramps up and we head up the lift at full speed and fly through the layout. And I'm so happy that we finally got the chance to ride this ride because it was a pretty good ride too. Like, I've definitely had faster rides, but I've had slower rides. The wind was relatively working with us, the airtime is pretty strong, and the helix wasn't completely dead like it is on a completely cold day. Most importantly though, the long stretch of straight track after the helix was as beautiful and wonderful as ever. As we sailed through the last volley of airtime hills into the final breaks, it became readily apparent to all of us that this ride wasn't going to open again. And that meant that we were the only people the entire day, probably the entire weekend, to get a ride on Superman the Ride, which means we win. I thought the whole situation was hilarious, because like, it was. And the fact that we were the only people the entire day to ride Superman and we got a back row ride was just like the icing on top of the cake. We felt like the kings of the world. Sure, we had to wait a little bit at the bottom of the lift, but it was worth it for such a rare and special ride on this weird but okay Intamin Hyper. Now that we're off though, we decided to hit up Batwing once more because like, come on, it's the best ride in the park. There are about 100 people on the line when we arrive, which means it's going to be a 40-minute wait, but I believe it's worth every second, so we step on the line and we prepare to wait for the grueling dispatches of the Flying Dutchman. During this wait, I jinxed us twice. First, while we were standing in the line kind of recounting what the hell just happened to us, I said to my friends, wow, imagine getting stuck that long on Batwing, like that would really suck. Then, once I got to the station, I whipped out my phone and recorded a short, immediately posting it on my YouTube page to feed the hungry YouTube algorithm. I titled this short... What did I title this short? I titled this short, Batwing is actually running at Six Flags America. Once it was finally our turn to board though, we got lucky and nabbed a precious front row seat and we were treated to an awesome ride on Batwing. Stellar ride, one of the fastest I've ever gotten, and I still think to this day that the front row is actually better than the back row in this ride. It's so forceful, it feels like it's trying to throw you out of the train at every opportunity. I absolutely love this thing. But things were about to take a change as we arrived back into the station. As soon as we got back into the station, before the train even stopped, we heard the spiel one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are sorry to report, but Batwing is experiencing a temporary delay in operation. We do not know how long the ride will be down, but we will make every effort to have you off the ride as quickly as possible. Why not go check out some open rides in the park such as, oh, never mind, don't check out that one. Our train finally came to a stop in the station and we did not chassis up. We remained stuck in the laydown position and we laughed our asses off because what are the chances we'd be stuck on 2 breakdowns immediately after another? That said, Batwing is known to be a little temperamental, so I wasn't really worried. I figured we'd be off in like 5-10 minutes tops. But once we hit about the 5-minute mark, I started to realize that things were a little more serious than that. The ride-ops started running up and down the train, asking if we were okay. I jokingly requested a pillow, because again, I thought the whole situation was hilarious. but it seems that the rest of the train didn't really share in my sentiments necessarily. I also decided to start recording this experience in case it was a ridiculous 25-minute extravaganza or something like that. So I whipped out my phone and took this pic of the three of us. And look how jovial we are. Sure, the position was a little uncomfortable, but the whole situation was really funny and we were making the best of it.
Getting evac'd off Batwing right now. We got the maintenance guy is manually lifting up the train. It's somebody's birthday.
The minutes continued to tick by though, and as the maintenance staff continued to flood the platform, I was beginning to worry this would be a little more long-term.
It's been about 8 minutes since we got stuck on Batwing. All the blood has rushed to the front of my head. We're in the station. To be fair, we're in the station. We've not moved. They're going to have to manually raise every single chassis up.
Now at this point I started to realize something about the Vekoma Flying Dutchman that I did not know earlier. When you're in the lay-down position, you're not sitting totally horizontal, you're actually counted down, a little bit past horizontal, so your head is actually below the rest of your body. And what that means when you're sitting in this position for a long time is that all the blood rushes to your head. This was initially a funny sensation and began to get pretty uncomfortable as 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes and 10 turned into 15. And around the 10-minute mark, a rather serious-looking maintenance dude did a track inspection, sticking his head and arm into the track directly around my head, and I overheard by him talking to the other people what the problem was. It turned out that the locks that deploy to lock the car into the main chassis during the cycle are stuck closed and they can't get them open. And that's the reason that we were still stuck in the laydown position. They start to troubleshoot as people on the train continue to break out into various random songs.
They're singing songs in the station. This is a great team.
About 15 minutes in, the ride op that had been checking on us came over to us with our consolation prize. An exit pass skipped the line, valid only at Six Flags America. And given that Six Flags America is almost never crowded, this pass is basically useless. I mean, hey, better than nothing, but after 15 minutes of sitting in the laydown position, the last thing we wanted to do was immediately hop on another roller coaster. Like 4 mechanics are up on the platform at this point, and they're all talking to each other. One of the maintenance guys comes with just a massive box with a huge plug, which seems to connect to the train and provide a manual release for the restraints. So it seemed that our relief would come relatively soon. At this point, the fun was starting to wear off, and it just began to cross into the uncomfortable. My head just genuinely felt like it was swimming with all the blood constantly rushing to it, and the vest was really starting to pinch down on your shoulders. It felt very claustrophobic. Molly was feeling like she was about to throw up. Thankfully, I wasn't feeling nauseous in any way, but it was extremely uncomfortable. I overhear the maintenance guys who are talking to each other directly next to me. It seems that they were trying to figure out whether to try and raise all the cars manually or to just evacuate everyone in the lay-down position.
Excuse me, this is your show, so you want to do it gal down or gal up? Can you gal up? Let's gal up.
And eventually they ended up settling for the latter, and informed us that we were going to have to evacuate the ride in the lay-down position. I remember talking to the maintenance guy and asking him which would be faster. He informed me that they'd have to start at the back of the train if they were going to raise every single car up, and I told him no, it was fine, we can evacuate in the lay-down position, just get me off this damn ride. Finally, after 25 minutes of being stuck in the station of Batwing, the maintenance guy finally plugged in the box and manually released the restraint. But I quickly realized that it only releases the lap bar, and it only goes one by one, which meant that every single restraint needed to be unlocked individually. Since the box only released the lap bar, the ops had to manually pick the lock on the vest to release it, and the op basically came over with what amounted to a glorified paperclip to pick the lock and release us from the restraint. We were informed of the evacuation procedure. We had to take off the vest and slide out backwards heading towards the head of the train, which would give us enough space to step on the head pad, get up, and get off the attraction. James was the first to attempt egress, and he immediately went the wrong way, but eventually the ride ops told him and he figured it out.
Oh, James, you did it wrong.
That makes sense. Alright, so stop. Where am I going?
Push yourself back.
There you go.
That lift up? And now I'll just stand. Okay.
Nice.
I was second and executed the evacuation perfectly, if I do say so myself, and Molly was the final person on our row to be evacuated, which I recorded for posterity in all of its glory.
She's being surgically extracted. We made it! We made it!
As our feet finally touched terra firma on the exit platform, we were overwhelmingly relieved. Screams of joy came out of my mouth, which are joined with screams of joy from some of the people waiting in line, finally seeing the evacuation taking place. However, I couldn't help but to feel a little bit bad as the mechanic moved to the second row and continued with the evacuation. We were in the front row, we were the first people to get out. Since they needed to evacuate everyone individually, that meant the people in the back, like row 5, row 6, were gonna be stuck there for like another 5 to 10 minutes.
The evac needs to happen one seat at a time, so they're unloading the train one seat at a time. Over here is the big box that they use to physically release the restraints, and then they literally lockpick the vest.
I felt bad, but not bad enough to avoid gloating a little bit about our successful escape. We had escaped the clutches of Batwing despite its hardest efforts. There is one final employee waiting for us to take down our name and number, presumably for liability reasons in case one of us somehow ended up in the hospital after the ride. I'm still waiting out for a text from Six Flags America giving me a bunch of free goodies for my time, but unfortunately that has not come yet, so fingers crossed, maybe it'll happen soon. Once we were out, we were done, and we immediately left the park because, goddammit, my head hurt, I felt like I was swimming, Molly was on the verge of throwing up, we were just really tired from that whole experience. It was a lot. That being said, though, it was kind of cool as hell. Like really uncomfortable, but super cool. I think I would actually prefer an evacuation on a B&M flyer, which I can't believe I'm saying because B&M flyers are also really uncomfortable when you're stuck in the flying position. But just having the blood rushing to your head for a long period of time is just so uncomfortable. It was really bad. Like, if we got evac'd off Superman, at least you're sitting down for 25 minutes instead of just being uncomfortably crushed by a vest restraint as the blood in your head turns your brain into soup. And as we walked back towards the front of the park, we had a little bit of a discussion. Were we the luckiest people alive or the unluckiest people alive? We had managed to get 2 breakdowns on 2 different rides back to back after suffering through a day of ride closures. We ended up deciding, though, that we were pretty damn lucky. If we had missed that Batwing train or Superman train by just 1 ride, we wouldn't have gotten on the rides at all. So at least we got 2 good experiences, and we can walk away saying we were the only people to ride Superman the entire day. So, fatigued and exhausted, we headed home back to Philadelphia, and that gave us some time to reflect on our experience at Six Flags America. And though this experience may dissuade a lot of people from the park, I still kinda love it. Six Flags America is just the paragon of the Six Flags park. It is every stereotype of Six Flags brought to life. You have to work for every second of your fun at Six Flags America. That makes the good moments that you do get, a great ride on Batwing, a really cool individual ride on Superman, an awesome spinning experience in a windy day riding Ragin' Cajun, an actually decent drop tower too. The suffering makes those ride experiences that much more special. And I mean, where the hell else are you gonna get double breakdowns in a Batwing evac, right? It was by far from the smoothest of days I've had at a park, but I've never come back from a park with so many stories to share, and I think that's a little bit of a victory in itself. So yeah, don't be discouraged. Go visit Six Flags America. And shout out to the ride ops, shout out to the mechanics. They did all that they could to ensure that our experience being broken down on multiple rides was as comfortable and as short as possible. That said, don't get stuck on a Vekoma Flying Dutchman. Well, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I wasn't planning on actually making a video about my trip to Six Flags America, so that's why this video is all being done kind of as a postscript. Normally I would prefer to live vlogged it just to kind of make things more smooth, but sorry, that's the way it is. That said, I hope you enjoyed this experience. I hope you enjoyed hearing about us getting stuck on multiple rides and all the fun that Six Flags America had to offer. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of the other Six Flags America content that I've made. Check out some of the other Six Flags parks or just general park content, from my silly coaster roasts to my park ranking tier lists. And if you're in the mood for something a little more serious, a little more scripted, why not check out my Coaster Crash Course series, or my long-form video elegy formats. If you like this video, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Every little bit helps. I'm still a pretty small YouTuber and I could really appreciate the content boost. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again real soon, hopefully not stuck in a Vekoma Flying Dutchman.